What's going on? Welcome into the Brant Parcell Show. I know it's been a while, so all right, let's get into it. So let's talk. We're going to talk college football today. So let's talk about Florida State. So Florida State, Keon Coleman has been a key part to this offense. That was a huge transfer. That was a huge get. And Florida State's is one of those teams where I think if they do something special this year, you're going to look back and say, well, it's no wonder they were so good. Look at all the NFL draft caliber players on this team, and their offensive line has been really solid. It's been stronger than in some years past when they've, their offensive line being down, it would really cost them in some years prior. Jeremiah Byers has been a really nice player, the UTEP transfer. So their offensive line doesn't get a lot of talk right now just because of how well Keon Coleman has done, but their offensive line has been a really strong unit. Florida State just a really strong team, and Jordan Travis has really taken the necessary steps to continue to get better as a quarterback. So yeah, Florida State continues to trend in the right direction. You just worry that close game against Boston College, close game against Clemson. Not that a number of close games necessarily equates to a loss, but it usually is a formula that a team's going to drop a game. Because usually when you look at a national title contender, obviously each team is different, each year is different, but if you look at a national title contending team, they've usually beat everyone handily, and they usually had one down game, one close game. So Florida State having numerous close games, including an overtime game against Clemson, a game against Boston College where they let them come back and just lost by 2 points. When you have numerous close games like that, sometimes it can equate to a loss coming in the future. But yeah, Florida State, really strong team. Trey Benson, Johnny Wilson, a number of talented playmakers on this Florida State offense. So yeah, Florida State, really strong team right now. So let's talk about, Colorado's dropped a couple games now. And, Colorado, it seemed like when they had that 3-0 start, I think a lot of people were, you almost get so overhyped and you're like, are they not going to lose the game? But you kind of got the feel with Colorado they were going to drop a game once they got into to conference play. Oregon, a tough opponent. I think Oregon, I'll say Oregon to me was the worst matchup for Colorado, just because Oregon presents such a unique challenge with their ability to, Oregon under Dan Lanning is not really, they're starting to become not really as much of the Oregon in years past. They're becoming more of the Oregon, they're more of like the, I don't know, they're more of becoming a little bit more like Georgia, while also keeping a little bit of Oregon's, kind of spread, flashy playmaking offense with a mobile quarterback. Not that Georgia doesn't have a mobile quarterback, since Bennett was that guy, but they are kind of taking on a little bit, they are more physical at the line of scrimmage. That's why I think, just a side tangent here, I think that's why Oregon is going to be a legit contender in the Pac-12 under Dan Lanning, just because he's going to, not only can he, outscore Pac-12 opponents, but he can also his teams can also win the line of scrimmage. So Oregon was a bad matchup for Colorado. USC, credit how they came back in that game. Colorado did a great job of working to get back in that game, competing. It was cool to see Cormani, McClain, some of the young guys out there. So yeah, Colorado now dropped a couple games. But yeah, I think it, even though Colorado, they're 3-2 as they sit 3-2 right now, and we're talking about some of the low parts of their season. I think when you look at the Colorado Buffaloes, you have to say, this is a point in the season where I think this team could finish, 8 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins, maybe 9 wins. I think it's the point of a season where everyone's just like, yeah, this was probably just their lowest of the lows, and everything was pretty much back up from here. Maybe they do drop a few more games, but I think that Colorado is going to rebound, and we're going to see Colorado perform at a high level more consistently the rest of the season. And I think you will see, even if they drop a couple more games, I don't think they'll have as demoralizing defeat as they had against Oregon. But yeah, Coach Prime has done a really good job. I think it goes back to, even if they finish 7-8 wins, a little disappointing based on the way people were talking about them after that 3-0 start. But I think if you look at 7-8 wins compared, you got to put it in perspective to last season. they just had one win. It's kind of like, I compare it to Brian Kelly with LSU. Sometimes winning a lot of games in the first year is almost kind of a detriment to your longevity as a coach. And what I mean by that, it's like, look at Brian Kelly, started 10-4 last year, and then LSU was preseason number 5, and then now there was, not a lot of people, but a small vocal minority right now demanding him being fired. Now, if Deion Sanders has a down year next year, is he going to get fired? Probably not. But if he has a down year next year, like say, a down year probably, say they win 5-6 games next year, maybe even 7 games. Is that a disappointment? Yes. But based on, but is it more so a disappointment if they win 8-9 games this year? Yes. So sometimes winning a lot of games in the first year, it's one of those things where, say Coach Prime won 4 games this year and then 7 games next year, as opposed to 9 games this year and 7 next year. You look at it differently. The first year, the second year looks, it looks a lot more. It looks like things have improved. Obviously, those win totals can look a lot of different ways. But the point I'm trying to make is sometimes coaches can become a victim of their own success, especially in that first year. But yeah, Colorado, this was a year, it's an interesting year for Coach Prime to arrive at Colorado, because this is probably the strongest the Pac-12 has been, arguably. And man, it's been a long time, even when, and I've always vouched for the Pac-12 conference. I've always kind of stuck my foot out, in support of the Pac-12 conference. But, you look at Oregon, Stanford, when they were dueling in those years, like from between 2010, 09 to 13, 2013, 2014, when they were dueling in those years, the rest of the conference wasn't as strong. You look at top to bottom, the Pac-12, top to bottom, you could argue the Pac-12 is the best conference this year. So it's interesting that Colorado's bringing all this flash and excitement and improvement in a year where the Pac-12 is at its strongest. If this happened, if Coach Prime, if they were doing all these things several years ago, we might have been talking about if they were, if this was several years ago when the conference was weaker, we might have been talking about this as a potential championship caliber football team. But 3-2, big improvement for last year, tripling their win total from last year, literally as of this point in the season, and this might be the lowest of the lows for Colorado at this point. Let's see, who else do we want to discuss here? So let's talk about Texas. Let's talk about Texas for a minute. So Texas came in, expectations, Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, playmakers, talent on both sides of the ball like Texas does in every year. And yeah, Steve Sarkisian, he can coach. He can win games. Has he proven that he can win big? No. Has he proven that he can win big over a course of multiple seasons? No, he's not. No, he has not. But yeah, Steve Sarkisian is a good offensive mind. And Quinn Ewers, people suspected that Quinn Ewers could bounce back in a big way this year, and he's done that. Texas, if they really wanted to do something special, could really get a marquee win in week 2 against Alabama. They did that. They've taken advantage of beating up on Kansas, Baylor, 2 teams that not very good, especially Baylor, a lot worse than expected. So if you look at Texas as of right now, to me, you immediately want to say their third ranking's too high. But if you look at what they've done, they've really just checked all the boxes. So I guess the point with Texas is you could argue they're overrated, but since they've checked all the boxes and they haven't really done anything to really make an argument that they shouldn't be number 3, then you got to just, you can't, as of this point, you can't really argue too much about Texas's number 3 ranking. But yeah, Quinn Ewers has been outstanding, cut his hair, just really been balling out. So Quinn Ewers, a special talent that's really cool to see his talent on full display, and it's cool to see him just doing a fantastic job with this Texas team. And yeah, Texas, the expectations, they are winning games, got the key win over Alabama. To me, Sarkisian getting that win over Alabama, was that kind of if you look back, if Sarkisian really turns Texas into a powerhouse, is that the win that we look back on and say that propelled his career into the next level? I think maybe so. I think that maybe could be a discussion down the road. But to me, Steve Sarkisian, I know he was super excited about that win, but that's one you shouldn't be. That's one you should be happy with. But if you're overly content about it, then that's worrisome because, if you're Steve Sarkisian, do you really want that's as great of a win that is, especially on the road? Do you really want that to look back and say that was the one highlight of my career, especially when I'm coaching at a place like Texas with all the talent? And that sounds like I'm kind of beating up on Sarkisian. I don't want to beat up on Steve Sarkisian, but you really have to understand that when you're coaching at Texas, the expectations are high, and there's really no years where the talent is really so low that you shouldn't be winning at least 8-9 games. But yeah, last year, to me, last year was a little disappointing for Texas, but you really get to feel like it is a step. Last year was a step in the right direction for this Texas Longhorns program. So yeah, guys, I'm going to wrap at that. Thanks for tuning into the show. Stay tuned for more episodes and clips. Until next time, peace.